Yes, and it's your definition, right, Carl? Like your definition of happiness would be different to my definition of happiness. Your definition of impact might be different to my definition of impact, but I think the foundations of the way maybe you and I operate, I mean, I don't know you that well, but from everything I've seen publicly and the short time we've had together, I think the foundations of the way we think and the way we operate, it comes from somewhere. You know, your purpose is through common threads in your life journey and your life story. But the key difference is that we all have a choice on what we do with it. And the choice we make, we need to be accountable for it and not find an excuse or not find reasons to say, no, I'll just keep doing this because that's, that issue will go away or it's something else. And so that's something I've spoken to a lot of young people, old people, middle-aged people. When I see them suffering, struggling, under mental health stress, work stress, pressures, you can have a chat maybe one, two, three times. And then you basically have to say, you've got a choice. You really have a choice. And this is a path you have chosen. You know the path you could take. I It's tough. I think when you build things quickly, um, it has inherent risks in there. For me, I've actually got a tattoo of a turtle on my arm. That is my spirit animal, according to the Balinese people. And I truly believe things take time. I tell my wife this all the time. Patience is a virtue. When you rush and do things very quickly, it can work. It can backfire. Whereas for me, certain things need to take their time, like sustainability. Of course, we're running out of time, and we're kind of paying the price for it now, and we will for the foreseeable future. Um, but with sustainability, these things take time. I generally say it's a 3-year rule. Some might say that's quick, and some might say that's not. So if I could go back in time, which I wouldn't, I've loved every minute of my life and no regrets, the good and the bad. I would say that the 3-year rule. You start with education, year one. Year two, you kind of start building systems and start, driving projects. And year number three, you're really embedding and integrating sustainability into your ecosystem, whether it's a business, with your family, a school. So after 3 years, and this is a mantra I live by, if you have not done that, you either haven't done a good job or it's the company not really wanting to appreciate sustainability. So it's a three-year thumb rule where I always try to make my role redundant. That is my policy. So if you look at my resume, I have not been at a company for more than 3 years. I stand by my words in practice as well. Yeah. Exactly. So when I say quick, it is 3 years can sound quick because you see people 10 years, 8 years in a company, 20 years. So in that way, I think it's not about the quickness, it's about the sweet spot. So you got to find the sweet spot. So at the formative years, I think my sweet spot was still being defined. Even my moral compass was still kind of being aligned, realigned, on what's right, what's wrong. I've got my set of ethics, I've got my set of values, but I grew up in Africa where I saw a lot of things. I grew up in the United States where I saw and experienced a lot of things. Almost died in a plane crash, Carl. In Nigeria, I've had the gun in my mouth 3 times and on my head. I recently came back from a trip to the Middle East. I went to Lebanon, went to Syria, went to Iraq, and I saw things that many people in this world need to see. And I experienced so many things that people in this world will not even dream of, right? Good and bad. So I think you get all these life experiences, and it's what you do with it that makes you who you are. And so I truly believe my life toolkit is still growing and learning, but I'm so humbled at the experiences that I've had because I always tell my wife if I left tomorrow, if I left this planet tomorrow, I would leave with a smile. That's right, Carl. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited. We're having a global conversation. You know, you being based in the Massachusetts, and me here in Melbourne, Australia. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful morning. I'm sure it's a beautiful evening there, and I'm looking forward to a fun chat with you, Carl. I'm not
Maybe
that
when you
old,
first
Carl.
started
No.
studying or a few years
Just kidding.
ago.
No, thank you. I
You've
am getting
obviously been
there.
studying a while.
Yes, the aches and pains are creeping in, Carl, so I am feeling my age. Um, so sustainability, so it's interesting, right? When you did the very kind introduction, sustainability chose me. I didn't choose sustainability, and that was 18 years ago. And I've been in that field since then, and it's something that I'm very grateful to be a part of because it is a community that's needed in the business world, in the world, period. Because as you can see, metrics around climate, human rights, pretty much any environmental, social, governance issue, some of the metrics seem to be trending in the wrong direction. And our cohort, our community, are just one stakeholder group of a larger ecosystem trying to do the right thing and trying to make a real impact on our planet. So for me, Carl, it's interesting. My first chapter, I was a professional tennis player. So I grew up in Africa, and America. Actually came to Texas when I was 12 years old on a tennis scholarship. I left my parents at a very young age. Um, and yeah, I unfortunately went through some very turbulent times when I was in Texas, when I was playing tennis in the academy. So long story short, over the next few years, my tennis game deteriorated. It was actually very promising, which is why I was able to make such a massive leap at such a young age. But due to those issues, which I've spoken about in my TED talk and in my book, a lot of really bad things happened, which shouldn't happen to anyone, period. And because of that, while my tennis game went down, my character building, resilience, mindset, bulletproof vest, whatever you want to call it, these things unconsciously started to really build. And I didn't know what was actually happening because I didn't know the meaning of the word mental health. I didn't know the meaning of the word therapy. I didn't know the meaning of the word coaching. I had few tennis coaches, but really it was just me dealing with my own stuff myself. And the reason I indulge a little bit on that in this conversation with you is, um, it, when you read that long headline of who Kaushik is, that long headline is built based on who I am as a person. I'm not ambitious, I'm not career driven, but I love having fun and I love to be happy. And I'll do anything that keeps me happy. And it's never about, financial impact. It's about a bunch of other things that I define as impact. So sustainability chose me when I actually came to Australia as a tennis coach. I came here so the tennis team stuck for a little while. The theme from player to coach. So I came here as a coach. I worked with a very famous lady. She's the all-time Grand Slam winner till now. And she actually rang me when I was in South Carolina. So that's where I did my bachelor's. And she rang me at 4 a.m. and said, "Hey, you want to come to Australia and be a tennis coach with me?" I said, "Sure, why not?" I was going to get my degree. I had no purpose in terms of a career. I didn't really care. I was just going to float through life like a turtle. And here I am, Margaret Court ringing me and saying, "Hey, you want to come over?" Yeah, sure. Pack my bags. Just came, landed here where they wouldn't accept even a bottle of water in border security. And I was thinking, this is an interesting country. Came here, went to a little country town of maybe like 20, 30,000 people. Um, the only tennis coach, so obviously became quite popular, for many different reasons. And that started to build my confidence a little bit. And then I realized I hated tennis. All the things that happened to me over time made me realize this is not for me. Quit, came to Sydney, Australia, did an MBA, and it was there, Carl, that an internship opportunity came for me in sustainability with Unisys, which is an American listed IT company, as you may know. And I actually rejected that internship 2 times because I didn't really care about sustainability, or I didn't, unconsciously it was like, who needs to save the planet? What's wrong? There's a bunch of trees here. But the person said, nope, listen to my vision for Unisys. She was my mentor, and she said, let me define to you what I think sustainability means, and then you decide if you want to take this internship or not. I took it, and since then, I have stuck with it. And so that's why I am where I am today. And that's why I am who I am today, Carl. It wasn't, Carl. Absolutely wasn't. Uh, so when I first got into it, I got into it because I was asked to get into it, right? And then as I spent some time in it, the subject matter really piqued my interest. Having done an MBA, bachelor's, studying economics, finance, marketing, a lot of your mainstream subjects, it just didn't float my boat. It was, I mean, it's maybe, I think it was, I wasn't that smart to begin with. So, a lot of these things just went over my head, accounting. And then I came and did this sustainability thing. And I thought, ooh, this is interesting. You're working to do good in a like a really tangible way, and you get paid for it. That's how does that work? Um, and then got the job, right? I got a full-time job with them, and I just kept doing it. So it wasn't about saving the world. It wasn't about acknowledging, that the number of modern slaves in the world or how the emissions are trending in the wrong direction or, different things, water security, biodiversity issues, etc. And then I decided to do a PhD after a couple of years of working, and it was then when I really immersed myself into the subject matter. And what I wanted to do was actually look at it from a corporate lens. I've always had an affinity to commercial and corporate, right? Like that's something that really excites me because that's where the money is. And if you want to do good and make an impact, you need money. It's well and good to, stand in the streets, and you need those people who can do that. But for me, what gets me is I want to go and influence the big end of town to see if we can influence and shape decisions at a policy level, at a corporate level. And so with my PhD, it was a very pragmatic, practical PhD where interviewed like 50, 60 corporates around the world: Germany, Canada, United States, Australia, Asia, like the big names. And I asked them, what do you think sustainability means? Why do you think it's important? Does it really matter? Is it just greenwashing? There was like 60, 70 hard hitting questions and soft questions. So the data that I got from that, even if I did not finish my PhD, the feedback I got from these heavy hitters, these people who are, doing amazing stuff, I just thought, wow, there's a career in this. That's so cool. And there's an opportunity here to do something amazing. Um, and it has not disappointed me. The career choice has been the best choice I have ever made. And I'm so grateful for that. So you mean my first role or my first foray into sustainability? Uh, Yeah, it was eye-opening, eh? Because sustainability, ESG, which is kind of another term that we used to call that now, it's massive. There's 10,000 data points under environment, social, and governance, believe it or not. So it's a minefield, and it's still a minefield. So when you get into this space at a young age, having very little understanding of it and almost not that much passion, because a lot of people who get into this, they have a lot of passion. As you rightly asked with your question, someone wants to save the trees, someone wants to help the whales, someone wants to help refugees. There's so many passion topics that they use to get into a particular area, and then they make a career of it, and they have an impact along the way. Whereas for me, because it chose me, I kind of went in the first job before my PhD, just looking at it from a particular lens of confusion. I was confused. I was thinking, "Mm, reducing 10,000 tons of carbon emissions does what? Um, you know, why does your CEO of Asia Pacific of this global listed IT company that runs data centers really care about reducing carbon emissions? I was trying to comprehend. I was doing a business case for LED lighting, and I thought, why would you do a business case for LED lighting? It's the right thing to do. So, like I had some of the right intent, I had some of the confused intent. So I was kind of working my way through it. But as I mentioned earlier, I wrote a book, right? It's called The Art of Winging It. And literally, Carl, I'm 40 years old now. For the last 30 years, I've been winging my way through life, but in a very smart, concerted, creative manner, right? So I kind of know what I'm doing, but I don't. And I think that's the beauty of life. If you always know what you're doing, life will get boring. When you make it a little bit unpredictable, that's when it gets exciting. So for me, when you read that long tagline of what Dr. Kaushik Sridhar does, it is really that fun. If I just did one thing sitting in one box, it's fine. It's fine, but anything can happen within that one box, which might make you disengaged, which might, you say you're a career coach, you're a life coach, you're a purpose coach, Carl. So you would have so many people you talk to about various things that impact them and affect them, which is why they're seeking out that help. For me, at a very young age, I realized that if I sit in a box, um, I'm not going to be my best self, or my true self, or my authentic self. And so for me to be those things, I do me, and it's oxygen mask on me first. So with sustainability, I chose it. People said you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, your typical stuff. And I said, nah, I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to see how it goes. And that was back in the day. And today it's the second hottest scoring career choice globally, and one of the highest paying jobs as well. So go figure, right? I mean, for a starting salary, like a graduate, not for someone senior. I teach at so many universities, and I tell these kids, hey, kids, of course, you know your accounting degrees and you know all these mainstream things, right? But did you know sustainability and ESG after AI is one of the hottest growing career choices and jobs at the moment with one of the highest paying salaries? After that one sentence, the light bulb moment and eyes just snap. Whereas when I started, that was not there. It was a struggle, it was a slog. And what that taught me was how to sell business case to a group that's slightly skeptical when the value proposition is not that clear. So that was how I would define my formative years. It's tough. I think when you build things quickly, um, it has inherent risks in there. For me, I've actually got a tattoo of a turtle on my arm. That is my spirit animal, according to the Balinese people. And I truly believe things take time. I tell my wife this all the time. Patience is a virtue. When you rush and do things very quickly, it can work. It can backfire. Whereas for me, certain things need to take their time, like sustainability. Of course, we're running out of time, and we're kind of paying the price for it now, and we will for the foreseeable future. Um, but with sustainability, these things take time. I generally say it's a 3-year rule. Some might say that's quick, and some might say that's not. So if I could go back in time, which I wouldn't, I've loved every minute of my life and no regrets, the good and the bad. I would say that the 3-year rule. You start with education, year one. Year two, you kind of start building systems and start, driving projects. And year number three, you're really embedding and integrating sustainability into your ecosystem, whether it's a business, with your family, a school. So after 3 years, and this is a mantra I live by, if you have not done that, you either haven't done a good job or it's the company not really wanting to appreciate sustainability. So it's a three-year thumb rule where I always try to make my role redundant. That is my policy. So if you look at my resume, I have not been at a company for more than 3 years. I stand by my words in practice as well. Yeah. Exactly. So when I say quick, it is 3 years can sound quick because you see people 10 years, 8 years in a company, 20 years. So in that way, I think it's not about the quickness, it's about the sweet spot. So you got to find the sweet spot. So at the formative years, I think my sweet spot was still being defined. My even my moral compass was still kind of being aligned, realigned, on what's right, what's wrong. I've got my set of ethics, I've got my set of values, but I grew up in Africa where I saw a lot of things. I grew up in the United States where I saw and experienced a lot of things. Almost died in a plane crash, Carl. In Nigeria, I've had the gun in my mouth 3 times and on my head. I recently came back from a trip to the Middle East. I went to Lebanon, went to Syria, went to Iraq, and I saw things that many people in this world need to see. And I experienced so many things that people in this world will not even dream of, right? Good and bad. So I think you get all these life experiences, and it's what you do with it that makes you who you are. And so I truly believe my life toolkit is still growing and learning, but I'm so humbled at the experiences that I've had because I always tell my wife if I left tomorrow, if I left this planet tomorrow, I would leave with a smile. Um, yeah, it's a great question. So as you may know, I resigned from my job, right? I resigned from full-time work just about a couple of months ago, and this is the next chapter of my life. So every corporate experience I've had to date has been humbling. There's been some amazing things that I've picked up, amazing experiences that I've picked up, and speaking about toolkits, building my professional toolkit along the way. My most memorable job to date, Carl, still is that tennis job. When I came to Albury Wodonga, because that job taught me a lot of things for what I do today. Um, Imagine you have to teach tennis, Carl, to a 3-year-old, a 13-year-old, 33-year-old, 53-year-old, 83-year-old. Different age groups, different egos, different needs, different skill sets, different requirements, different communication styles. And you're trying to align all the different stakeholders on a common vision, a common purpose to hit a good shot over the net and to be a great tennis player. So, stakeholder engagement skills and communication skills. This is what I learned in my first job, which was a tennis coach, and it's what has helped me be who I am today. And I would highly recommend to your audience, always do things from left field and lateral thinking. Stay away from linear thoughts because the world is your oyster, and it will not come to you. You've got to give it a shot and try random things, and you can be a cool little package within 10 years or 5 years that employers and interviewers and clients would just see, ooh, you're just different. And most of the jobs that I've gotten is in the job interview, it is my background. It's not my intellectual capital, Carl. Intellectual capital is there or it will come, right? You can be trained, you can be taught. But I always tell young people use your story at your job interviews, when your conversations, because it's important to learn about people. Active listening. Obviously, there's not much here because you're interviewing me, Carl. Normally, I like to listen, not speak. And I would love to hear your story one day as well. But it's your story. It's my story that got me my jobs. Most people just go like, "Oh, tennis player." Same reaction you had when we did this, when we started this podcast. You're like, "Oh, did you do all those things?" It's just random, right? But I love it. I love using that, and it's my story, and I'm so proud of it. So what I do now is I am using and utilizing my capital, my intellectual capital, everything that I know to deliver impact. So when I started my new chapter on LinkedIn, I put a KPI for myself. I don't know if you saw, it's a public announcement where I said I am going to set a KPI for myself to impact 20,000 people over the next 12 months. Random. I don't know. You asked me where I got that number. I don't know. It's just a number that came up. And so for me, at this point in my life, professionally and personally, I've been giving back a little bit through my time and other things, but I will really want to impact a range of stakeholder groups, especially young people. So I currently one of my so my company, you can edit this if you like, but it's called Orca Advisory, right? And the name Orca is a Swedish word. It means the will to get things done, the will to get things done. But it has another meaning which I can't say in this podcast because there's an expletive in there. But you can also Google, because my Swedish friend told me last week, and I hope she watches this. She said it, Koshik, did you know it means something else, which is F this S, like just basically screw this. And I said, Anita, that's totally cool, because that's the sentiment this company has. It can go either way. So it has four pillars. The first one is teaching. I love teaching and working with young people. So I'm working with a few universities here in Australia. I'm teaching leadership, governance, ethics, sustainability, and change management. So these are all the different topics that I'm passionate about. And I want to get these young people to be amazing leaders that have emotional intelligence, that are well equipped with resilience, and this is screwed on correctly and ready for what's to come. But then also professionally to have the knowledge to really know their stuff when they do an interview, when they work on a project. So making them really well-rounded individuals as much as I can, right? So that the next generation of leaders is the generation that this world really needs. The second part is public speaking. I like listening. I also like speaking. But when I say speaking, it's not about speaking to show the world on a couple of social media posts that I'm speaking, but it's more, I have a lot of things in my head. As you can see here, I'm just rambling on with you, but I have a few things in my head because of my life experiences. My trip to the Middle East itself is a book in itself. Something happened there which people say could be a Hollywood movie, but I have so many things that can be converted to perspectives and life lessons, and so that's why I love using speaking as an arena to share whatever I know, and people can do what they want with it. The third one is coaching and mentoring, not at the scale that you do, but for me, it's just helping people with a career in sustainability, talking to them about if you want to get into space, how do you do it? But also life, like, I've nearly died 10 times in my life. Like, I've been that close. I've been physically, emotionally, mentally bullied beyond imagination. I've been racially abused beyond what you can even imagine, and I'm smiling all the freaking time. So I think maybe I could share a couple of things with some people in this space. And the last one is consulting. So you mentioned the clients, right? So the clients across the four pillars can be academia, it can be individuals, it can be not-for-profits, and it can also be like corporates, whether you're listed or whether you're private. So in the consulting, the fourth pillar, it's helping companies on their environmental and social impact. But the key difference of what I do, Carl, is I do not want my company to run me. I want to run my company on my terms and my time, because my first priority is traveling the world, spending time with my wife, being happy, and having fun. Everything else comes after that, and keeping my family happy, of course, my parents. So what I do is I'm picking and choosing who I speak to, who I connect with, and who I work with. So even this podcast with you is an hour of my time. It's an hour of your time, right? We see value in each other, and I wanted to have this conversation with you, and so I'm making the time to have a chat with you. Time is precious. You can always make more money, but you can't always make more time, and that is something fundamentally important. So that is the ethos of my life and my company, which is I want to do cool stuff and cool things with people that I care about and really admire. Yes, and it's your definition, right, Carl? Like, your definition of happiness would be different to my definition of happiness. Your definition of impact might be different to my definition of impact. But I think the foundations of the way maybe you and I operate, I mean, I don't know you that well, but from everything I've seen publicly and the short time we've had together, I think the foundations of the way we think and the way we operate, it comes from somewhere. Your purpose is through common threads in your life journey and your life story. But the key difference is that we all have a choice on what we do with it. And the choice we make, we need to be accountable for it and not find an excuse or not find reasons to say, no, I'll just keep doing this because that's that issue will go away or it's something else. And so that's something I've spoken to a lot of young people, old people, middle-aged people. When I see them suffering, struggling, under mental health stress, work stress, pressures, you can have a chat maybe one, two, three times, and then you basically have to say you've got a choice. You really have a choice, and this is a path you have chosen. You know the path you could take. I leave it to you. And
Yeah.
that's where it's more about empowering people to make the decision for themselves. It's some might say it's quite cold, it's quite harsh, it's quite hard. But as I said, you can't look after everyone if you don't
Mhm.
look after yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I find that accountability is critical on all levels, on the personal level, or if you're trying to build an organization.
Yeah,
It seems like anything that you want to do starts with accountability.
that's
But
right,
on the
100%.
personal level, that's how you take control of your life and what's happening to you, I think.
You look at the subject of corporate governance, right? It's a big thing, right? The word governance in mainstream media, in a corporate sense. In America, you would have heard of Enron, WorldCom, some
Mhm.
governance scandals which created the Sarbanes-Oxley Act that you have in the New York Stock Exchange and in the United
Mhm.
States.
Right.
But governance came up from accountability.
Mm.
If companies were always accountable and transparent, etc., governance as a topic may never have come about, and I may not be teaching that subject today.
Mm.
So it's basically you have that mirror up moment. And I truly believe, for your audience, whoever watches this, whether you're an executive, high flying executive, whether you got nothing, whether you're suffering, whether you're happy, whether you're, looking after family, caring, whatever you do, just look at the mirror, look at yourself and just say, am I happy? Am I being the best that I can be? And am I really making an impact on people? Am I helping people? And also saying, have I screwed up? Have I messed up?
Mm.
It's not like AA and your 9 steps, but or 7 steps, whatever the steps is. But when you say, yes, I have messed up, maybe you need to be a little bit accountable for some of those actions, because
Mhm.
the reason people are leaving their jobs, the reason people leave many things, maybe they leave this world, they leave their jobs, they leave families, they run away, whatever it might be. You have issues, husband, wife, or, in a couple kind of issues. It's that mirror up moment, and it's being accountable. And that's one thing married life taught me, to be more accountable. I have actually
Mm.
learned that from married life. Until then, I was an only child, and I had a different mindset on the way that I looked at certain relationships and things. But in everything, I learned a lesson. So from my wife has taught me a lot. My
Mm.
employers have taught me a lot. My bullies have taught me a lot. My
Right.
parents have taught me a lot. And life has taught me a lot. So I'm using all these things, constantly looking in the mirror and saying, am I the best I can be? And am I as good as I can be? And if I'm not, I tell someone I'm so ashamed of myself and I'm really sorry. And
Mm.
that's because ego has no place in this world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It causes all kinds of problems. It always, and it's always there too. It's always right behind. Right. You almost have to watch out. There's even ego traps you can fall into.
Yep. I won't say any more on that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, but I I think that it's important to not only have that kind of that reevaluation of yourself, but um, also kind of to seek maybe an outside perspective,
Yes,
because people tend to get so stuck in the rut that they're in. Everybody gets stuck in their own thing, and if the answer becomes "I'm not happy," then you have to figure out how to do something about that. I guess, right?
absolutely. Outside perspective, Carl. And if you don't mind, if I could take maybe 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, just talking about my recent trip to the Middle East.
Oh
So
yeah.
in February last year, I was based in Sydney at the time. I was thinking, where can I visit? I'm getting itchy feet. on many different fronts. What can I do? And my wife put on a documentary, travel say documentary, and said, "Sit down, watch this," because I was annoying her about traveling somewhere, and it was a documentary about Aleppo in Syria, where they had the earthquake. It was one of the most dangerous cities in the world in 2016. And I just saw these six kids playing soccer or football, with a background of just absolute destruction. And I had this in my eye, and I looked at my wife and I said, "We're going in December." And she said, "No freaking way." And I said, "Yes, we are. Or I'm going with or without you." And she said, "Well, what if we get killed?" And she kind of gave a couple of sentences, which was more informed by media than anything else. And of course, there is some truth to it. But I said, well, it's our choice, right? I just feel like I need to go and see these people and these places.
Mhm.
So in October, when the war started in Australia, they announced that no one should travel to Lebanon because Lebanon was at war, or being having some issues with Israel.
Mhm.
And so it was in red on the TV news, and my wife was looking and she said, "What are we gonna do? 'Cause our first stop is Lebanon." I said, "Even more reason to go. I'm not listening to our country. Um, of course, they're trying to look after the citizens, but it's my choice. I'm gonna go." And the poor thing, I knew it would be fine, and I knew she would love it. So for your audience, by the just quickly at the end of the 5 week trip, my wife said this was the best trip of her life, and she said nothing will ever match this experience. And we've been to a few countries over time. So we went to Lebanon. Um, we got kidnapped for 10 hours. I can't go into too many details
Wow.
there, but I
Jeez.
can just share broadly, imagine being blindfolded, imagine Jeeps with blacked out windows, a bunch of stuff, right? It was a Hollywood movie, and I can share that more details off the record. But that was the only, if you call it, blemish on what was an otherwise life-changing experience. But even that
Mm.
at the end was a surreal experience. When you're having a chat with the stakeholder group and understanding why certain things happen and where it came from and etc., you actually think, oh, okay, I completely get you on why some of these things happen. But
Mm.
besides that, the one example I wanted to share with you is in Mosul, in northern Iraq, which was where ISIS was actually formed. They have a mosque there, and that's where the caliphate was announced. And that mosque is now blown up; it's destroyed. Right? They blew it up before they left the mosque. So UNESCO is over there rebuilding the entire city. It's beautiful now. It's looking better, but it was
Mm.
one of the most bombed, attacked places in the world. And so we went to the mosque first, and then we went to a neighborhood. And I've said this story to a few of my friends, but in that neighborhood there's a photo on the left, and that's how the neighborhood used to look. It was flatlined, and now it's like Santorini. It's got like blue buildings, pink buildings, like really cute.
Wow.
UNESCO has made it a really
Yep.
cute little neighborhood. There was three old wise men standing on the side having a yarn, and I went to them with my tour guide and English Arabic translation. 10 minutes, had a good chat, left. My tour guide came to me and said, that guy on the left, standing there on the left, he has three sons your age, and one looks exactly like you, and all three were beheaded by ISIS. And he has a wife, and she was passed around by the different commanders, and then she was beheaded as well. That
Wow.
was pretty intense. But I had maybe 300 to 400 experiences like that, right? In the travels that we had, in
Mm.
conversations, in experiences, in what we saw, what we felt. Um, I went to the guy and looked in his eyes for 10 seconds, and he said, "Come in." So I went into his shop. He's a tailor. And he said, "Look at that photo over there." And it was an Iraqi flag hanging outside a minaret of a mosque, that mosque that was blown up. So I asked my tour guide, "What is the significance of that photo?" And he said, "That flag was stitched by him, tailor, and it was hanging outside the mosque, which is the symbol of Mosul. So he's really proud of
Mm.
that photo and that flag." I said, "That's freaking amazing, man." And then I looked at the three photos over there. It was three sons. One looked like it was my twin brother. I was just
Wow.
like perplexed for some time. And then he opened his mini fridge, started giving us all this food and drinks and so on and so forth. And then I said, "Can I take a photo of you with my wife?" And the old guy obliged. He came and I took a photo. On your phone, you have a round little dot to press it on your iPhone. Take that photo, and I pressed it. My brain snapped. I had about a few hundred snaps during that trip. And the reason I take the time to share the story with you is perspective, life experiences. I heard that and I thought, I know people in parts of the world who earn millions of dollars, but are they good humans? or could they be better?
Right.
I know people now who have nothing. I used to live near the slums in India, grew up in Nigeria, had rough upbringing in terms of certain parts. Um, these people are some of the happiest in the world. So I think when we get too comfortable in our neck of the woods, danger is not far away to your
Mm,
personality, to your well-being, to your health. So it's always important to take that time to venture out. Even this, after this call with you, I'm dashing away from my computer and going somewhere out there for a bit of a walk, right? These things are really important.
mm,
If we just sit, work like a machine,
mm,
when your time comes and on your gravestone, what's going to be written? You know, John the Machine, Sarah the Machine. It's not what you're going to be known for. You will never remember the day you worked, but you will remember the
mm,
day you lived. And I remember my days of living like there's no
mm.
tomorrow, but I don't remember my days of working, which is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Exactly
Don't
right.
get me wrong. Like I love
Mhm,
my work. I love what I
mhm,
do, but that's not what gets me going. That's just something to do. But life is
mhm,
much more than just it's one part of the Carl equation, like for you, or the Kaushik equation. You have work, you have life, you have all these different parts, and you want to make sure all the parts are taken care of really well. It's like a football team.
right,
You have 11
mhm,
players. If you mess one player up, it could be hard to win the game. And so you got to take care of everything equally, really well. When one gets askew or too much, something is wrong.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great description. Absolutely. Agree. um, so I wonder, what are you working on this year coming up that you're most excited about?
Myself. It's my new thing, man. I
Mm,
mean, you called me a portfolio
okay.
entrepreneur. I have never been an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. I've always been an intrapreneur. So I've been an
Right.
entrepreneur within four walls,
Mm,
within a company, and now it's kind of branching out and trying different things. And I'm
mm,
ready to fail. I've failed a million times. I failed yesterday. I will fail today. I'll fail tomorrow. But I love failing because that's where I learn. So with what I'm doing, I have no expectations, no
okay.
metrics besides that number of people that I have to impact, which I think is quite large in itself. But I just want to have fun. I want to talk to good people, and I want to help young people, those that need help. No one needs help unless they need help. But you know what I mean? It's teaching is something I really love. Consulting is something I really love. But I am not a salesman. I am not that sort of a person. I could be if I wanted to. But that's not my thing. My thing is to just do good, and make an impact. And I will. I know I will. Absolutely will. And it's my definition of success. If my definition of success is to make $1 million this year, I'm going to fail miserably. But if my definition is to try and impact a few thousand people this year through conversations, through ideas, through innovation, through whatever, I know I will succeed. And so yeah, that's it. And probably the only other thing is I'm going to yeah, start planning a trip at the end of this year, and that's going to be the other KPI for me. Doing something
Okay.
crazy, which can't announce yet because this could be viewed by certain people that, yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'd like to keep them curious.
Okay. Awesome. So, how are you going to go about making an impact on all these 20,000 people? I'm having some live events. I think when my book's published, I'm going to be promoting that. So I'd
Yeah,
love to have you back as a speaker. You
sure.
know,
I think you know what you're doing, Carl. From the very little I know of you, it's pretty cool.
thanks.
You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. I think a lot of people would love to do what you're doing. It's so cool. And you're so positive. You're so happy. You look young. I don't know how old you are, but you look young. And you tick the things that many people would want to do, right? And that says a lot about you as a person in terms of how you've kind of grown and come together. And it's amazing. You're like a case study. Uh, on how to live
Okay.
potentially. I'd love to hear your story more at the point.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think for me, how am I going to impact these people? Uh, you're impacting me right now, and hopefully, I'm
Okay.
impacting you a
Great.
little bit
Yeah.
through or your audience, right?
Absolutely.
Uh, exactly. The word impact, it's not that complicated, and it's not that hard to achieve. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
in a corporate world, people have like 50 meetings a day. I don't know how you have 50 meetings, but that's 50 conversations, and that's 50 examples of impact. It's really your definition. So for me, my impact is going to be measured by people and projects.
Mm.
So in teaching, obviously my students. In coaching, it's going to be my clients, whether it's boards, whether it's executive teams, whether it's individuals, it can be anyone. From a speaking perspective, it's my audience. And then from a consulting perspective, it's the number of projects and the number of workshops and the number of, impact, whether it's from a generally from a people perspective, but it can also be from emissions or other stuff. But that's not in the definition of impact for me on the 20,000 people. So that's my definition. It's really it's
Great.
focused on delivering a service
Mhm.
that has an impact. That's it.
Right. Awesome. I love it. That's great.
Thanks, man.
Well, I could definitely use some help with some of these organizations. I'm on the board of a couple different ones, so
Hit
I'll
me
have to
up.
get some advice from you.
Totally. You just reach out anytime.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me, and um,
It's
you know,
great to meet you, Carl. You know,
thanks. Yeah, yeah, same here. And good luck with everything and your change of direction and all. It's really exciting time for you. So,
no, thank you, Carl. I just want to say I'm grateful for the invitation to have a yarn with you. I don't know if you had that in America, yarn. It's like a chat or a conversation. We say that here in America. Yep, having a yarn. Yeah, keep up the great work. Keep smiling always. And yep, a big hello to your audience when they actually watch this one day. And yeah, happy to keep in touch anytime, Carl.
great. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Doctor.
All right,
Dr.
man.
Sridhar. You
You have
have
a
a
good
great
evening, yeah?
evening. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Thanks, man.
A good
It's
day.
morning
Yeah.
here. See you, Carl.
Bye bye.
Take care, man. Bye. Bye.